Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Career Podcast for SA. Today we'll be talking human resource, or HR as we normally call it, and I'm joined today by a very special guest, someone who's probably used to sitting on the other side of the table doing these interviews. But I think it'll be interesting to firstly talk about HR as a profession, and then shortly after that we'll talk about, every time you sent out a CV and didn't get any feedback, or when you walked into an interview room and didn't know if you did well or bad. We'll talk about all of that and just get an idea of what should we be doing differently and what are we doing right. So hope you guys are happy to have with me here Ayanda. Hi Ayanda.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm doing very well, thanks.
Thank you. I'm good. I'm very good. Thank you very much for making the time to come through to join me here.
Mm-hmm.
I hope today won't be challenging for you. In terms of no, we'll make it work. But I think first and foremost, before we get into all the nitty-gritties, do you want to tell everyone just who Ayanda is?
Hi everyone. Ayanda Magoko. All right. I come from the Eastern Cape, so grew up in Tanzania. Studied in East London until matric, and then post-matric I ventured and went through to Cape Town, and that's where I continued and furthered my studies with human resources, which was not initially the degree of choice, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, but ultimately that's where we ended up and graduated in, and from then onwards I moved to Johannesburg. I had one lady, she worked for a recruitment agency. So somebody introduced me to her, and then we went, and I remember, I think it was 2004, something like that. Anyway, so very first time I was ever interviewed, so it was nerve-wracking. And I must admit, I kind of blew that interview completely. Like, it was like one of those where I was sitting like this and I was holding, I was like, however, I just think that I was lucky enough for her to say, listen, don't you just want to be a receptionist, So I kind of figured, I'm fresh from school, I don't really know much, but it is a recruitment agency, so what's the worst that can happen? So I did actually take the job. It was interesting for the first month. After that I got bored, right? So I think being young and not really having a lot of boundaries, so I went up straight to the CEO at that time and I said, if you actually don't promote me, I will resign. So I didn't know that you can say that or you cannot say that, but I just felt that, I guess maybe it was from the good reviews that you get from people, so maybe there was like an igonyana type thing of thinking that, I can go bargain. But fortunately for me, she actually did move me for reception, because she said that, listen, no offense, but it's not working. So she moved me and she gave me a HR admin role.
Okay.
So that's when I started to get the gist of what the role is about and what have you. And I found that from sitting at a reception desk, there was never any room to sort of learn at all about, what I'd studied and etc. But so that's where I started off. So from there I moved into training and went into training, and I had a classroom full of, young adults. So there I learned, you know what I mean? Like, I had to deal with people from different spheres, and you had the clever ones, you had the slow ones, you had the clowns of the class. But now what taught me, it went deeper into the understanding of human beings. It went deeper into having those sort of interactions, and it went deeper into getting the cultural background of human beings. And that prompted for me to go study logotherapy. Okay, so I never really heard about it, but in the midst of the research, because I remember saying, what will take a mix of psychology and also religion, and also, and it was only because I was really, really interested in going deeper, but not in a very textbook typical manner. But I just wanted something that would be much more enriching. So the Viktor Frankl School of Thought, and I decided to venture into that. And I think it's one of the greatest things that I've ever studied, to be honest with you. And then from then onwards, moved into the financial sector. That was also nice. And what I learned from that is how different people can be from industries. I mean, here I came from the recruitment agencies, and then I went to telecoms to do that whole training, and then now I was in the financial sector, completely different things.
Yeah.
You know, and then from then onwards I went into media, which was absolutely amazing. So there, I must admit, I sort of found like my people, you know, type thing. And the reason I'm saying my people is because of my character. And it was completely more comfortable, you know, the suit thing sort of, you know, felt stringent.
Yeah.
The biggest challenges that I would say that I had with media was looking at the different problems that employees face. So when you've got your freelancers, they only do a job here, they do a job there. However, you also needed to keep in mind that for the duration that you're with the company, you need to, you know, adhere to the company rules and policies. And sometimes they drop that. And I think because now this was new ground to me, it prompted me to decide, okay, let's go do a postgrad in labor relations, you know, because as much as you've got a bit of the experience and you're also learning from your seniors, you sort of need more depth. And, you know, I figured that's the only way that I can do it, and that's what I did. And then from media, I moved into a different industry yet again, and it was much more on the wellness industry, you know, employee wellness.
Yeah.
And so that was another one that was completely new. Unfortunately, I didn't last that long there. The organization that I worked for at the time, they went through a restructure, and they completely closed our branch. And then I found myself in mining, and then I think I actually found my home. And the reason I say that is like, it's the one industry that I've stayed in, and I want to stay in. It's the one industry that I still feel it's so rough, and there's so much that you can still do in it, from a human resource space. And you know when the passion is still there, like you know when you're ready to walk out, but it's one of those this is something that when you watch the changes and you're part of it and you're in it, you know, you can actually look back when you're older and you're like, no, I was part of that journey and I was there, you know. So that is basically my background, my professional background. So
quite in depth. I promise you, there's viewers trying to figure out how old you are thanks to all of that.
Oh, why? Thank you.
So I'll leave it as a question mark. But yeah, I think you've already touched slightly on it. But you think you could maybe just expand on human resources and what exactly that is. And I think while you do that, also maybe touch on what kind of individual you think would do well in the role that you currently are in.
Look, human resources is very broad. I think generally for people that are not in it or they don't understand it, they always just hone it down to recruitment. And I'm just saying that because it's what I found, that when you say, they're like, oh, how is it like to fire and hire people? You know what I mean? And it's not just like that. You know, it's so much more bigger. So you have your generalist, no? So that is where all the different functions of HR you would do. So it means that you're actually exposed to all the different speciality areas within the fraternity of HR, right? And then you've got your OE sections, organizational effectiveness, you know what I mean? And then from then onwards, you've got the REM section where they deal with all the remuneration, and they deal with the benefits, they deal with shares, that's the money. That's more where people really want to go, right? And then you've got your talent section as well. So that is where you look at the people that are talented within the organization, what do we invest, you know, what are the ROIs and etc. And then there's also employee relations. So that's where the disciplinaries, you would say, ultimately sit. But it doesn't end there. I mean, there is the funds where they go sit, you know, where you, your pension funds and your providents, and they need to be sort of managed. So you find that the ER person tends to, that whole, it forms like part of that portfolio. So on my end, I've been a generalist for as much as I have been alive, which is not that long, but long enough. It's such a pregnant function because it doesn't just end with one area of speciality. So here I am, I will recruit. Here I am, as I said, if you have to fire and hire, that would be me. here we are, if it comes to certain implementations, new interventions, that will be delivered from my end as well, So my function, I would say that it's very much of the HR ambassador for all of them. Yeah. So we do have those special areas, but with my office, it starts with us.
Yeah.
So you are forced to know all the different functions and how they work, and then you are able to filter it down depending on the level of detail that you would have to go to.
Sounds very people focused. Sounds like you need to know how to engage with people. Interesting. I'm now going to get into the part that I think a lot of people want to hear about.
Okay.
So yeah, I think if you've ever sent a CV and not gotten any feedback, hopefully this next question will help out. But yeah, how does that work? You guys get hundreds of CVs for a job. What is the process that is followed, to end up with that few people that will get a call up to come for the interview? And I think you can firstly answer it in that direction, and then maybe also touch on what are people doing wrong with their CVs, whether you have links or so on. I can always include it at the end of the end of the interview or in the description to help people go look at how do I improve my CV. But I just want to know, what are some of the no-nos that as soon as you get a CV you say, oops, nope, that's not for this? Because I feel like that's what we think happens. I feel like you've got this big rubbish bin in your office where it's like CVs that have you never even wanted to open. I don't know.
No, it doesn't quite work like that. Okay, look, I'll give an overview instead of of holding it down to one thing. But when you look at, you've got a job, right? So for every job, it comes with its requirements. You need to have a matric or a degree or this and this and this, okay? So within that job spec, there are non-negotiables. So you could say that a degree is a non-negotiable because you cannot perform this function if you don't have that, right? So from those minimum requirements, and you get 100 CVs, it's very easy to look at a CV. Okay, do they have the top 3 things that are important for this? And you can, no, they don't have a degree, no, they don't have the experience that we need, and then you just take it and then you will file it. So that is how we would initially sort of shortlist. I think that is the most basic way of shortlisting. You would have done that, you'll probably end up with 50, okay? So with that 50, now you start looking and going deeper. Okay, from the experience that you have you done this? Have you done that? Because you'll find that in the job description as well, there will be the duties or responsibilities that we expect from that person. However, just because they're there and they're 12, it doesn't mean that it ends there. But at least those are the most important that we need, at least to get to the closest of the candidate that we're looking for. So anyway, after doing that, you'll find, okay, cool, this CVA has got at least, okay, they've got experience in this, they've done this, tick, 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 and then it goes to a further shortlist. All right, so you sort of shortlist. Say now when it gets to the ultimate, say you've got about 7. Maximum you're likely to interview is probably 5, especially when it gets to more senior. Because number one, you're dealing with people that don't exactly have a lot of time to sit in lengthy interviews. So that's why you also find that we've got the screenings that we do, be it telephonic or be it maybe an HR consultant, depending on how the structure it's done within that organization. So you'll do that screening and it's like, I'm not too sure. Okay, it's not working. And then ultimately you'll probably have your top 5 or your top 3, whatever number that you get to. And then those are the people that will get interviewed and compete for that role. Okay. Now when you look at CVs, some CVs, unfortunately, even if they have what you want, the minute it's got spelling mistakes, right? Because what that tells me is that if you did not have if you could not invest in making sure, your own CV is correct without spelling mistakes, then how can I take you seriously? And then I've come across CVs where people have got photos. Some of them, they're professional, other ones look like you're from a bar. So now, how are you supposed to be shortlisted? You know what I mean? So those are certain mistakes that they do, or the font would be different. Or other people, they've got such a wealth of experience, but it doesn't come out from the CV. Other people, they think having an 8-page CV is brilliant. I don't want to read a thesis when I'm shortlisting. There's a whole 1,000, So from my personal point of view, I would say that the best way to write it, especially if you're somebody who's got a whole lot of experience, start with the most latest. Because in other ones, they will start from 1986. By the time you get to 2020, it's too late, Babane. So rather start to 2020. And then, because by then you grasp my attention, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's like a book. If you get it and you don't feel the hook, you take it, you throw it out. And you could actually miss out on a good book. So it's something similar, if I could sort of make that analogy. So, it is a few things. And also, don't write stories. I always say that at least put the organization, write the position that you've been in, and just bullet point it. Just bring out the key things that you've done, and then it's easier. Just make it simple, more attractive, and accurate. And it must be
accurate, of course.
It has to be accurate. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say it depends also on who's receiving it? Would you say that, or is it like a tick box exercise that you all have, or is there a possibility that I might be successful with you, but if it goes to your neighbor in the opposite office, they might look at the CV and maybe not connect to it like you would my CV?
Look, I think that would be accurate. I think it really varies.
Okay.
No? If you think about it, when it comes to reviewing of CVs, there is no blanket approach. And you can't really have a tick box.
Yeah.
I could be very fussy with spelling or fussy with font. And then when it comes through to you, you're like, but Ayanda, you've missed out on this and this and this and that. Not to say that I'm wrong or that person is wrong, but it's sort of, my presentable could not be your presentable, type thing. But in most cases, I mean, if you're a recruiter, you are likely to actually have a very similar eye because you know exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
The conversation changes more when the interviews now start, and you're sitting in a panel. So as much as we're all assessing, we do have different preferences as human beings, you know what I mean?
Of course.
So once it gets there now, that's when it depends on what you bring out and how you interview and stuff. I don't know if you want me to go further.
Yeah, you've created the perfect segue. So I think the interviews. There are people that just don't want to sit in interviews. They feel like if you give them the opportunity to do the work, they will show you that I can do it. But then it's almost like an interview is a stumbling block where the moment they have to do this, then everything falls apart because they need to sit there and give this perfect presentation, and people struggle with that.
Yeah.
How do you think people should prepare for that when you know you've got an interview coming? Because you don't know who's going to be in the room. You just walk in and there's these 4 individuals or 2, whatever the case is. What is the best preparation for me as an individual before I walk into an interview?
Breathe. Look, firstly, I think the preparation starts before you go to that organization, right? So you will get that call and the recruiter will say, would like to see you for the first interview. You know what I mean? Go research the company, especially if it's a company that you're interested in. Some of the mistakes that people do on that research bit, they come in and you will ask them, as part of the introduction, have you heard about us? And no, I haven't got a clue. Like, I'm just here, people called me and I'm here. So already that has got a very negative, sort of impact on the panel because it says, so you woke up and then you came here, so now what must happen type thing, So research the company. And once that research is done, sort of think also to yourself that if you were hiring somebody for that position, what would you want out of it? Go read that job spec. If you don't understand something, it's either you go ask people or what have you, because it helps to at least come knowledgeable, and not be fluffy. Fluffiness is not going to help. Once that is done, fine, it's the day of the interview. Number 1, please look presentable. All right? And when I say presentable, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to now wear like your dance, what, but you find that when you're researching, it also helps to give you the flair of what the organization is.
Yeah.
So if the company is very casual, you're not going to be casual, but you'll be smart. You're not going to fit into a double-breast suit and then you're going to be completely out when everybody's in jeans.
Yeah.
But you will sort of, now that helps because that also says to this person, okay, so you've gotten to know us a little bit, right? And then from then onwards, brush your hair. I know I'm taking it to simple levels, but listen, from the years that I've been working, I've seen things, right? Don't kill us with your perfume, please. Please. Don't do that.
But I bought it for the interview, it must all be used.
Don't do that. As basic as those things are, but they're so important because imagine somebody walks into your room. I mean, it's a boardroom. And you walk in and you're going to dominate. You don't know how it will impact the other people.
Yeah.
So that is on the hygiene front. And then when you get there, obviously somebody's going to come pick you up and then they're going to greet you. A smile, you know what I mean? You need to have, I personally believe in positive thoughts, and when you smile and you've got that energy, already it says, okay, all of you is present. Your pose, the way that you walk, own your space. You know what I mean? Go there believing that this is already mine. I'm not saying be arrogant or, self-conceited. I'm just saying that be confident and just not be meek and, because that can also work against you. And then you come in, the panel would naturally greet you and then they will give you a seat, right? Chances are they'll offer you water, coffee, and etc. If you are clumsy, and you know that having water during conversations, leave it. It's only an hour or it could be less. Just to say, no, I'm fine. Like, it's okay. Because it will look funny when you start dropping yourself and whatever. And listen, when you are being interviewed, you find that obviously organizations differ. The styles of the interviews are also different. But your greatest weapon as the person who's being interviewed, listen.
Yeah.
Don't give them an answer that you think they want. Speak from a truthful point of view. If you don't know, or say for instance they ask you a technical question, or maybe out of experience and it's something that you haven't been exposed to, it's okay to say, I haven't been exposed to it. However, I think that this is how I would approach it. Do you know what I mean? So have the conversations, but you must also come across as a thinker. Allow yourself to process. It's okay to just take a couple of seconds in between questions, just so you can, sort of quickly collect your thoughts and be able to deliver. And don't lie. We've come across a lot of them. I mean, you get your salespeople, you get people that are going to be creative and they're going to be like, yo, I did this and I did that. And believe it or not, a panel is able to pick it up. Because once they prompt and they ask you questions and you're like, ish, mara now, that doesn't help you. So, but other than that, you need to be polite, you need to be present, be very conscious of your posture as well. Because the minute you slouch and you do funny things, body language is very, very important. And sometimes, you'll find that you will give a message stronger through your body language than you are from your speaking. And then just allow it to flow. But breathing is also very, very important, and then you need to be authentic, you need to be truthful, answer. And once the interview ends, you shake hands. It has to be firm, but please don't break my bones. But it's
you.